This show is brought to you by our generous sponsors. Thank you for all your support in the production of this Career in STEM series.
Hello everyone, welcome to Careers in STEM. My name is Akul Gunukula and I'm a sophomore at Troy High School.
Hi everyone, my name is Tanisha Panchal and I'm a junior at Troy High School.
A note, our previous guest speaker, Mihir Patel, has been rescheduled to May 6th. We are FRC Team 226, the Hammerheads from Troy, Michigan, consisting of over 100 high school students from Troy and Athens High School.
We've been competing in the first robotics competition since 1999. This Career in STEM series is a bi-monthly show occurring on the first and third Thursdays of every month. During these episodes, we interview an individual working in the STEM field and learn about their experiences. Before we start, we want to take a moment to thank our sponsors for supporting our team.
Also a reminder to put your questions in the chat and we will answer them at the end. Today our guest is Grant Reichenbach. Grant graduated from Wayne State University with a Bachelor of Science degree in Biomedical Engineering. He currently works at Fiat Chrysler Automobiles as a human-machine interface engineer. For this series, we'll have a 40-minute interview period, and we'll be answering questions from the chat periodically throughout the interview.
Awesome. So Grant, our first question for you is, what activities did you do in high school? This could be either your first robotics experience or any other that you participated in.
Well, definitely the big one is first robotics for sure. I spent lots and lots of hours on Team 910, the Foley Freeze, for all 4 years of high school as a design student, a prototyping student, as well as the team captain for a couple of years and our driver and strategy lead. And that was an absolute blast. It was definitely the highlight of high school for me. It was a great experience. A couple of the other ones I did though too. I was part of a medical science club where we met about once a month or twice a month, and we talked to a parent of the school who happened to be a doctor, and he'd tell us about the world of medicine and introduce us to some cool practices that doctors do on a daily basis and stuff like that. I was also the captain of the soccer team for 2 years. I did cross country. I did track. I think that about covers it. All the extracurricular activities.
So did that. So where did you get that biology interest? Was it from the doctor that you talked to, or?
Yeah, part of it. For biomedical engineering, I previously had very strong interest in the medical world, especially pediatrics, is something I was really interested in doing. But I also had a lot of the, engineering skills, the problem solving skills and math skills. And so I never really heard about biomedical engineering before maybe my sophomore or junior year. It's not your mechanical or your electrical engineering. It's not as common. But I went and talked to my advisor, who also happened to be our biology teacher. They meet with you like once a semester or whatever at my high school. And he talked to me about biomedical engineering because he knew my predicament. I had a tough time choosing between wanting to be a doctor and wanting to be an engineer. And so he talked to me about that and, some potential schools I could go to that have really good programs. And he talked about Wayne State because they have a really great medical program there, as well as a good engineering school. So the connection between those two was really good, and I knew biomedical engineering, or BME, as we call it for short, was a really, really good fit for me.
Did you end up taking any biology-related APs in high school, or engineering-related APs such as comp sci?
Yeah, I took AP biology with that advisor that I mentioned before. I really enjoyed that class. I also took anatomy. I took anatomy with a different teacher, actually. But that one I also really enjoyed. I love knowing about the human body. I think that's just always really interesting to me. And then there weren't a whole lot of AP classes offered in terms of engineering at my school. It was a very, very small school. Troy High School's well into the thousands of students. My high school was a total of 300 something. So very, very small, not as many APs offered. Sometimes they're only offered every other semester. So I think I missed the AP physics window by taking AP Chem instead. I also really like that one, AP Chem. While I don't get to use chemistry too much in what I want to do, I've always loved chemistry quite a bit. I think it's fun the way things work out, honestly. That's just one I enjoy, not as much use.
So, what do you recommend students do to find out more about their jobs in high school? I know you talked to your counselor, but what else could they do?
Definitely go explore some like take college tours as sophomores and juniors. You learn about these labs in some universities that you'd never heard about before. I think before BME, I thought about getting into photonics, which is like light and lasers and stuff like that. That's really cool. And I learned that from going to, I think I toured Kettering is where I found out about that. And they had a photonics laboratory, and I spent probably an hour in that lab, just talking to whoever was in there. I forget if it was like a professor or a TA. And they were talking to me about all the cool stuff they did, and I thought it was really, really cool stuff. And so I thought about doing that for a little bit. And what feels good to you in high school usually works out for you. Like I said, I felt good about taking the AP biology classes and any other engineering classes. And honestly, if you don't, if you're still not sure going into college, they still have you can have an undecided major, and you take some gen eds and start to figure out a little bit more what you like to do. And then when I really, really knew BME was for me was when I got into my junior and senior year. I had a pretty good idea. That's what I liked, but junior and senior year of college, no matter what your major is, even if it's not engineering or STEM related at all, you can talk to anybody, and those are the classes that you really, really like. My favorite class I took was the first semester of my senior year was musculoskeletal biomechanics, which is how the human body kind of acts like a machine. So it's a lot of physics applications in the human body, and learning how your muscle pulling on a joint is acting like a lever or something like that, for example. And just a lot of really interesting stuff there, and that was the stuff I was really passionate about, and so I really knew then that that's what I liked doing. Cool stuff.
Just really quickly, side note, you mentioned the acronym BME, that's Biomedical Engineering, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And I also wanted to just go back to the APs. Are there any classes that you wish that you would have gotten a chance to take in high school that might have helped you later in college?
The ones that could have been offered, AP Physics was one I wish I could have had a chance to take. Unfortunately, it wasn't offered for me. Another one that I think I would have liked, again, that was offered was AP Psychology. They dive pretty deeply into anatomy of the brain in that class, and so that's something else that I'm pretty interested in. Anatomy of the brain and the heart is something I would have been interested in if I had chosen to go into the medical field. I think I would have liked to be a cardiologist. A lot of that stuff just kind of seems to make sense to me, and I just enjoyed learning about it. In terms of other ones, I think some more programming related classes or computer science related courses would have been really helpful for my first semester in college, which was a MATLAB class. Granted, the teacher for that class was just okay. I found that particularly challenging, and I wish I could have been a little bit better prepared for it. And then some things that were offered, I think, the year after I graduated were some CAD classes in Autodesk Inventor, I think is what they teach it in. They had CAD 1 and CAD 2 the year after I graduated, and I'm a little sad to have missed that window because CADing is something I really enjoyed doing while I was in robotics.
So what other things in robotics did you find that helped you a lot more in college?
Definitely problem-solving skills and how to work as a team. Having a huge team in robotics and having, design students working with you. You have to collaborate, of course, and learn to work with other people. And I got to use those skills in college. The BME program at Wayne State, where I went to school, has a design lab every single semester that you're there, where you're in a group with the same students for the entire semester, and you sometimes a year, and you work on designing a new medical device that's never been designed before. And so all the CAD skills and building skills, technical skills that I learned from FIRST, really applied there, and as well as the collaborating skills to get through the design process, was very, very valuable amongst the other members of my group.
I think you mentioned MATLAB earlier. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So MATLAB is, some might call it a programming language, although when people mention lists of programming languages, it doesn't get it included, because it's basically a glorified calculator. It's a programming language where you're manipulating matrices, especially that's kind of what the whole purpose of it is. It's short for matrix laboratory. And it's, yeah, that's really all it is. You can't use it to program a robot, I don't think. You can't, there's not a whole lot of applications for it other than, using it to make your life at work maybe a little easier if you have to do the same calculation over and over and over again, and it's a really long one. You can use MATLAB to write a code that'll do that calculation for you. And I ended up using it in a couple classes, later down the road, which was nice. So yeah, I've got this really long, like, fluid dynamics problem that I've got to do, like part A, part B, part C. I can just run that a couple times through a MATLAB program that I write and get the answer immediately, is what I most often use it for. But yeah, and it was also really nice to be able to think like a programmer. Just learning a language, I think, is good for any kind of engineer, to kind of understand how some codes work and how you might be able to communicate with someone on a software team if you have to later down the road. Before I took that class and I was talking to programming students when I was on robotics, everything just kind of went over my head. Frankly, programming wasn't my strong suit, and I didn't know what they were talking about. But after that, you kind of understand it a little bit more. So it was a nice class to be required of engineering students.
So you majored in biomedical engineering. So in college, what did you do exactly in that course?
In biomedical engineering?
Yeah.
Yeah. In the design lab, or that course, or other courses?
Just like in general, like what did you go through as like a biomedical engineering student?
Okay. So the BME program has 3 different tracks. At Wayne State, at least. I'm not quite sure how it works at other schools. You have biomechanics, which is the one I took, bioinstrumentation, and what's it called? I'm trying to remember. I'll come back to that. I got to remember that one. Biomechanics is, like I said before, the musculoskeletal biomechanics class I took is a track along BME in which you learn how the human body functions as a machine. It's a little more mechanical engineering focused, is what we like to call it, and focuses on things like that. Some real world applications of biomechanics involve things like prosthetics, so can this prosthetic leg you're building support the full weight or almost the full weight of a human body, and doing the math to figure that out. Or, some things like in a wheelchair, for example, or other things like that. Bioinstrumentation, the second one, is, we call it the electrical engineering track of biomedical engineering. And that one has more applications for things like an AED. Don't ask me what AED stands for. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's a defibrillator. But the circuitry and wiring that goes into designing that, or the circuitry of what else? A pacemaker, for example, would be under that. Things of that nature. I'm taking a bioinstrumentation course right now, actually. So I'm learning all about that as I'm going through the semester right now in my master's program. So I'll be doing that. And then the last one is, I cannot remember the name of it off the top of my head. Not a lot of students took it. It's tissue engineering though, where you're learning about, how to, for example, like print 3D print like tissue models, So in one of the labs we have a tissue printer where you can you have these like filament of cells. If you know how 3D printers work, your filament is cells, and you can print that into a scaffold of like a human ear model, for example, and that creates kind of like a human ear with cells in it, which is really cool. Now, a scaffold, by the way, is a kind of like a empty model of like an ear. So if you had an ear and you drained all the cells out of it, what's left is still the scaffold. There's still structure there. There's just no cellular activity going on there. And we called that one the tissue engineering track the chemical engineering track of biomedical engineering. So that's kind of a summary of the BME program. And then the other important thing, like I mentioned before, is the design lab. And so that's something that's required for all 4 years. And, you work in groups designing new devices around, the 3 different tracks like I just mentioned, depending on who you get paired up with. You typically get paired up with people in your same track. So for example, my sophomore year project maybe, was a exoskeleton for patients with multiple sclerosis. And what multiple sclerosis is, it's a disease of your nerves where you're missing that kind of insulation on your nerves, is what I'll call it. And so it's very painful to move. And so some kind of exoskeleton would be able to help them move their limbs, move and lift things, so it's not quite as painful. So we made a very rough prototype. It was semi-functional, that helped lift their arm at their elbow up and down. So that was really cool. Or my senior year design project, which had a lot more work put into it, was a kind of a safety harness for dogs in a vehicle. And so what it was is basically, and I got to test it out on my dog, which was very nice. Didn't get into an accident with her. Just tried it on her and put her in a car. And that was really cool, having to do all the math of how strong it has to be to resist that. And it was an interesting project because it wasn't directly human related, which is also part of BME. It's not all about humans. Sometimes you design things for animals. So yeah, and that was something I really enjoyed. I think we got second place in our class. There's a competition every year. I think that was second place. So that was a fun one to do. We unfortunately, due to COVID, we didn't get it. We were supposed to go into our crash lab at school and test it out and see if it would really work, but unfortunately we missed that due to COVID. It was like the week before we were supposed to do our tests is when COVID started happening. So it was sad to miss that.
That sounds really interesting. And another question that we have for you is, what organizations were you involved in college?
So there were 2 main ones that I was involved in. Those were the BMES, which is Biomedical Engineering Society. We get together as biomedical engineers. Although we're not exclusive to biomedical engineers, we include everybody that's interested in the field. And we kind of just do activities together. We do fundraisers for charities, and talk about BME. Try and help each other out through courses and stuff like that. There's a lot of tough BME specific courses, and so we'd help out some of the younger students, or I got help from some of the older students. And we'd kind of do that together. That one wasn't a very active organization. The one I was very and still am active in was called Tau Beta Pi. It's or TBP for short, if I call it that. And that's kind of like NHS for high school students, but it's for college engineers is kind of what it's like. It's like an honor society where we do a lot of charity work with that one as well. We go out and do a lot of volunteering activities. We help each other out with homework. We do a lot of social events, and that one's not exclusive to BMEs. It's all across the College of Engineering. You have to be in a certain percentage of the top of your class, whether you're a junior or a senior, to be accepted into it. And there's a whole initiation process and stuff like that. And so, yeah, I was a board member of that one for 2 years. I was the membership vice president, so I worked on initiating new members. And then after that, I was the vice president, where I organized a bunch of professional events. So, meeting some advisors and professors around the College of Engineering is something we did, like a little luncheon for other students, and stuff like that. Resume workshops, stuff like that. Pitch interview workshops. Those are other things I did as vice president. So that was a lot of fun. I really like hanging out with the Tau Beta Pi people. And now I was elected to be an advisor after I graduated, and so I'm still active in the organization.
So during college or even in high school, did you do any internships or co-ops, or doing any right now?
Mm-hmm. I did 2 internships while I was in college. The first one was at Par Pharmaceuticals. They're in Rochester Hills. And I was an engineering intern there. I didn't really do too much with the whole pharmaceuticals part of it. What I did was I was part of the engineering maintenance team. And so my big project for the summer was designing a new fixture to go help the inspection process. They've got a line of people inspecting all these tiny vials to see if there's any kind of specs in the vials or anything that could possibly be wrong with the vials, because you're dealing with things that are going to be going into people's bodies. You have to be very, very harsh on the if there's any specs in anything. And there was a problem with the way they were doing something, and so I redesigned this fixture for them, so that they were able to see inside of it better. And they put that into the lines that they do the inspection process on. So it was really nice to see the work that I did over the summer go into production, or whatever you want to call it. And that was something I was proud of personally. And it was interesting to get that experience. I really liked that place. And then the summer after that, I got the internship where I work at now full time. At FCA, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, now Stellantis as of like a month ago. And I was a seat comfort intern there. And my big project for the summer there was helping develop massage seats. So, there's a lot of, nowadays, not a lot of people hear about it, but a lot of more luxury vehicles have massage in them. And so I had a big user test that I ran for at least a month. And I got to see what people think about different kinds of massage seats in a couple different vehicles. And I used BPD, which is body pressure distribution, mats that, they can see how much pressure is being put on them. If you press on a little bit harder, it lights up red. If you're pressing on it less, it's only like green or blue, for example. I used that and I put them on the massage sheets, and saw where the pain points were on people. And I took that data, analyzed it, compiled all of it, and such, and gave a recommendation to the company on what they should do for the future of their massage sheets. There's one being developed right now that's coming out, I think, next year. It's already been announced. And so that'll be something cool once it comes out and someone talks about it or something like that. Like, oh, hey, I helped develop that a little bit while I was an intern. So that'll be really cool to see once it's out. I really enjoyed working with that team. It was a relatively small team in terms of the ones at the company. There's a lot of teams that are like 15 or 20 people, and that one was only 5. So I really got to know those people and work closely with them. And I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed getting to use my biomedical engineering knowledge. I could see like, hey, this point right above their scapula or this muscle or whatever is really lighting up. And so that's very high pressure point that people don't really like. And, I have visual data to back that up. And so that was cool to do. I really liked that.
How did you find these opportunities?
So the Par Pharmaceuticals one, my dad's friend happened to work there. Also she's a mentor for a robotics team as well, actually. And she brought up to him one time if he knew anybody looking for an internship, and I happened to be, and so I got really lucky with that one, to be perfectly honest. That I just happened to have a nice contact with my dad to get that one, and so I interviewed online and got the internship for that one. The Chrysler internship, though, was a little bit harder to come by. I went to a career fair at Wayne State where they've got 100+ companies. They set up booths in this big auditorium that we have, and you walk around talking to different companies. And I saw Chrysler, thought I'd give it a shot. Frankly, before I had an internship there, I really wasn't into automotive at all. I didn't want to do that. I feel like there's a lot of people in Southeast Michigan that do that, and I wanted to try something different, but I thought, I'll give it a shot. I ended up getting the internship, and it totally changed my mind about it. So that was really lucky to have gotten that opportunity. It was really cool. Being a BME at a career fair that is mostly geared towards computer scientists and mechanical engineers, it was difficult. That's something they don't often tell you going into the career fair. They tell you, oh, come to this career fair. We got a lot of companies. Being BME, a lot of the times, frankly, they're not interested in hiring biomedical engineers, even though we have a lot of the same skills as your mechanical engineers or your electrical engineers. Some people, I guess, don't get it, that we have those same skill sets. And luckily Chrysler they understood that. And so they gave me the opportunity, and that was really nice.
So what other jobs are available to someone with a BME degree?
It's a pretty wide area in terms of what you can do. Like I mentioned before, there's the 3 tracks of BME that you have at Wayne State. Other companies that you can go check out are Stryker, famous sponsor of Team 2767 Strikeforce. They do a lot of medical devices. There's not too many huge like big like names like Chrysler, for example, that you hear about, besides maybe Stryker in Kalamazoo. Johnson & Johnson's another big one. There's one in Dayton, Ohio that I'm blanking on the name. They're mostly smaller companies, honestly, that you have to go check out. There was a career fair that I went to in Ohio as part of a big conference for Tau Beta Pi that I was talking about before. And they had a lot of biomedical engineering companies there. A lot of companies that work on, implants for the human body that were there. There was one that was developing a new kind of knee implant, in a full knee replacement. The patient typically gets, whatever removed and then replaced with this big titanium kneecap. And so they were redesigning that and rethinking it because it's normally a painful process and a lot of recovery time for it. And so they were fixing that up. Like I said before, a lot of need to redesign a lot of medical devices that are outdated, like new pacemakers, new needles for getting a COVID vaccine maybe, or something like that. Anything involved with the human body, from pacemakers to wheelchairs to honestly even like shoe inserts, that would be pretty big. Braces for knees. I had a huge brace on my knee. I tore my ACL playing soccer when I was 16. I had this huge brace on my knee. And like even since then, knee braces are a lot simpler and more comfortable to wear. It was pretty difficult. I was supposed to play with it on during soccer and stuff like that. And even since then, braces have come quite a ways. Especially even if you look back at like the 70s or something, for example, they were even clunkier and just huge. So if you can think that it has any application to the human body, there's some need for a biomedical engineer to assist with it at least.
Do you have any specific advice about gaining experience within a certain field of work?
I'm sorry, what do you mean by that?
Like for example, if you might want to go into the medical field, what kind of activities would you do beforehand to get into that field? Or specifically for you, maybe biomedical engineering?
If you want to get into biomedical engineering, again, I think I would recommend talking to, if you're in high school, I would recommend talking to a high school advisor, talk about what programs are at certain colleges. Not it's a relatively small field in terms of population, I guess, the number of people that are into it. So not every college offers it. So you definitely need to do your research and check out which ones offer it. Wayne State offers a full biomedical engineering degree, whereas my older brother, he went to Kettering and got a mechanical engineering degree with a bioengineering focus. So there's a lot of colleges that offer something like that. I think Michigan State offers something like that too. U of M offers a full degree. So getting into that is it requires a little bit of research. After college, it's definitely just start doing your research as well about what companies there are. There's a bunch in Michigan, on the west side of Michigan, and then also in Wisconsin. There's a lot of companies, and just talk to somebody about biomedical engineering. I'm free to reach out to for sure, and just ask them about what they do. And see what's out there. It's not too different from any other engineering program in terms of what you need to do to be involved in it. Medical school's a little bit different. You've got to go to medical school. You've got to take a bunch of classes related to that and then go through that process, have a residency. I'm not entirely sure how that works, frankly, but I'm not the person to ask. But there's also, if you want to do, I should mention this too, if you are interested in medical school, but also biomedical engineering, it's a common track to go if you want to do that. I have a couple friends who are in classes with me doing biomedical engineering, but they had plans to go to med school, and they took that tissue engineering track that's a little more chemical engineering related. And so they decided to do BME and have that a little bit of that engineering background. So maybe they're a little more familiar with the technologies that they're working with as they become doctors, or some of them also just want to get into other hospital technologies like MRIs. MRI technicians are biomedical engineers or MRI operators, things like that, or X-ray operators as well. All work on developing that technology and operating it.
Okay, so you mentioned that you're doing a master's in biomedical engineering as well, the electrical side, right? So,
The mechanical side, sorry.
Oh, sorry, the mechanical side. Okay. So, what benefits do you have to getting a master's after your bachelor's while working?
It's definitely just more experience and getting that higher level of understanding of the field. I've taken last semester I took a numerical methods class, and so that definitely just more skills that are valuable. And then I also took a class that's a pretty high level course for the program. It was a I'm trying to think of the name of the class. It was a class teaching you how to use software called LS-DYNA. LS-DYNA is it's kind of like a CAD software, but you do simulations in it. It's called FEA, finite element analysis. It's where you take like a CAD model basically, and you take whatever model you have and break it into a bunch of tiny cubes is basically what it becomes. And you can, if you had sphere 1 and sphere 2 and smash them together, how do those tiny cubes interact, and what's the actual result of smashing two things together basically. And so we use that class we learned the software, and we did a project at the end relating to, the biomechanical response of whatever we chose. And mine, for example, was a guy getting hit in the head with a fastball, for like baseball, for example. And what kind of injuries can he possibly sustain if he's got this 100-mile-an-hour ball coming off a bat and hitting him in the head? And so we got to see underneath like the human skin, those interactions, and what that mechanical response is and how damaging this can be to a person. And we came up with the recommendation that, hey, maybe pitchers, for example, we were talking about a pitcher for the specific project. Excuse me. They should probably wear a helmet. This can be pretty dangerous. And in the case of our specific simulation, we took it to the extremes. I think we made it 120-mile-an-hour ball, and the simulated patient would not have made it, without a doubt. It was a pretty intense hit, and when things get broken in real life, the simulation shows these parts of the model were just deleted, and so there's a chunk in his head that was just deleted, frankly. So it was fun to learn that and see that and make a cool recommendation. And that's something it's a very well applied software in the field. We use that at Stellantis or Fiat Chrysler Automobiles. And so they use that in like safety simulations. You've got this big truck and a person inside. If they get in a crash, what happens to the car? What happens to the person? So you don't have to go out and do this simulation in real life. And
Mm-hmm.
B, A, really expensive, and B, you don't have to use a real person. Obviously, you wouldn't use a real person, but you still get that really accurate representation of what happens to a person rather than a dummy, for example.
Mm.
So I really like that course. It was very useful to learn those skills in a master's program.
Can you talk a little bit about FCA and what exactly you do there as a human-machine interface engineer?
Yeah. So I got hired back in June after my internship at formerly FCA, now Stellantis, because we merged with a French company, as a advanced HMI engineer. And so I'll explain a little bit what my organization does. We have an overarching organization within the company called AVP&F, which is Advanced Vehicle Performance and Features. And what AVP&F does is we come up with new ideas for cool things you could have in a car, from massage sheets, for example, to a new way to use your cup holders or something like that. Just new ideas you can have in a car, and what the future of cars is, basically, without getting into like the engine or something like that, how we can make cars faster or more efficient. We don't do that. And so within AVP&F, there's a couple different subgroups, from ideation group to a vehicle integration group, and a couple other ones. But mine is advanced HMI, and HMI again is human machine interface. And what human and machine interface does, it's basically anything that a person is interacting with in a vehicle. So I have my keyboard in front of me, for example, right now. Pressing on those keys is HMI. That's me interacting with my machine. Adjusting the temperature in your car is HMI. I'm interacting with the car in some way or form, or pressing on the touchscreen on your radio. And so what we do within that is we design the screens in the radio or in your cluster, behind your steering wheel, or on your rear seat entertainment screens, for kids to watch movies, whatever. We design what those screens look like to make it as ergonomic and efficient as possible. Minimum number of clicks makes the most sense. It's very clear what this button does or what this icon is trying to relay to a customer, or things like that. That's the main point of it, is designing screens. We also do a little bit of ergonomic work, where we've got this new feature that it's a fancy storage bin in your trunk or something, for example, just thinking out loud. And it's got this handle on it, you've got to design how big that handle is, what's the maximum reach a person would need to do as like a 5th percentile female or a 95th percentile male. And so we've got this very, very extensive list of what we call best practices documents. And so we already kind of know what size handles need to be, how far they need to reach to press a button, things like that, or how someone should be sitting in a seat to do this action, something like that, or what material something should be to, give a good feel for like a knob you're turning to adjust the temperature. What material should that be to adjust it, like so it's not slippery or too grippy or feels weird in your hand. So deciding on that is also part of our job. Not too much. There's a special ergonomics team that does a lot of that work after the advanced stage. But we kind of do that pre-work and just thinking about it a little bit before we hand it off to a team that's going to put it into a vehicle.
So what are you most excited about in the biomedical engineering industry?
Oh, this is just about everything, honestly. Biomedical engineering is a lot of where the future is going, I think, especially in the automotive industry, honestly. The way vehicles are going, a lot of things are becoming more automated and a lot more user experience orientated. In the past, it was more about how can we make cars more efficient, and that's how electric cars came to exist. Or how can I make this car faster, or whatever else, or more towing capacity. Nowadays, it's becoming a lot more and more about how can I make a person have the best driving experience possible while they're in the car, especially as things are going towards autonomous vehicles. What are people going to do if they're not focused on the road? And how can we give them that good experience? Just make it a pleasure while you're driving with somebody or something like that. Have a little fun while you're driving.
So in the biomedical industry, obviously one big thing that is going on, I'm sure Neuralink with Elon Musk. What are your thoughts on that?
I to be perfectly honest, I haven't looked a whole lot into that. I probably should. It's Elon Musk. I love Elon Musk and a lot of the things he's doing. So I'd have to get back to you on that one, unfortunately. Sorry.
That's all right. Yeah.
Are you still connected to the first field in any way?
Oh, absolutely. My family is they've all gone through the first program. My youngest brother is in his last year on Team 910. My parents have been mentors on Team 910 for a full decade at this point. This is their 10th year, maybe their 11th year of mentoring the team. And then I'm personally still involved with Team 226, the Hammerheads, as a design mentor and the drive coach, which has been an absolute pleasure the last 3 years. It's been a lot of fun. First is something I'd recommend to absolutely anybody, whether you're into STEM or not STEM. It's really for everybody. It's a lot of fun, and you get to learn a little bit while you do it.
Mm-hmm. So what's your favorite thing about FIRST?
Definitely the ability to gain a lot of engineering knowledge and experience while having an absolute blast while doing it. I do FIRST because it's given me a lot of great experiences, but also because it's really hard not to do FIRST for me at this point. I love having fun at competitions, and I'm a competitive person by nature, so being able to do that while applying my knowledge into a robot is something I really enjoy doing. And so I decided to be a mentor in the first place because I didn't want to stop participating in it. I wanted to help the next generation of students learn what I did, and I wouldn't want to deprive that experience or opportunity from anybody. So I want to help continue the program as much as I possibly can.
Hey, that sounds great. And I think we have one last question for you.
Okay.
Is there any other information or advice that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yes. I think the biggest thing, if there's a lot of high school students or early college students listening, I think the biggest thing that I wish I could go and tell my younger self was just like relax about a lot of things. I stress out way too much. I still do because I'm technically still in school in my master's program about grades and doing well in class, which is a good thing. You know, it's a good motivator for me to do well and to get things done on time. But I wish I could go back and tell myself to not, you know, stress myself to the point of uh, having problems. Um, in my life, you know, and not care so much about that. Like you're gonna be fine. A lot of people try to scare you about college and stuff like that. It's gonna be so hard. It's a totally different monster. There are some professors in college that take it super serious, but there's other ones that are there to legitimately help you learn and help you understand what you need to know. And those are the best moments of college, honestly, is having those kind of teachers that understand that school is stressful. And they really try and help you understand the material, and that's my biggest advice is don't take things too seriously all the time. Don't stress out. I know it's hard to do that sometimes, but trust me, you'll thank yourself later.
So one quick question: have employers ever asked you about your first experience? Did they consider that?
I think yes, during my internship interviews. I'm not sure if they asked about it during my full employment interview, but for the internship, yes, they certainly asked me about that. They saw it on my resume that I was a first student. So it was something I brought up, and you know, I always talk quite a bit about that. I love first, so I talk about my experiences there and how it's prepared me for my classes, and my classes prepare me for my job, and you know, working as part of a team and stuff like that, like I've mentioned before. Definitely is something to bring up in part of a job interview or internship interview if anyone ever decides to go that route, for sure.
So, favorite moment of with 226? Do you have one?
My favorite moment with 226?
Mhm.
Probably the most recent competition we had almost a year ago now, or maybe a full year, when we were the Championship Alliance at the St. Joseph District for the first time in 17 years, I think. So it was a lot of fun to break that long streak with the team. That is, you know, that streak that is almost or drought rather, that is almost as old as some of the students or older than some of the students. So getting to spend that that moment with the team was really something special, and as an alliance captain, no less. So that was something to be something special to be a part of, especially having a role as drive coach was really cool. Yeah.
Well, we thank you very much for your help as a mentor and really appreciate all your support. And thank you all for joining us today. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And make sure to come back in 2 weeks on March 18th for our next show with Srinivas Simhan, one of our very own mentors who graduated from the University of Michigan and is now a system analyst at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Once again, we would like to thank our sponsors for all their help and contributions to our team. And that's it, guys. Have a good week, everyone.